Do you ever feel like you're there, giving your heart, but no one truly sees you? There's a particular ache that lives in the chest of a woman who pours herself into relationships, friendships, and spaces, only to feel like she's speaking through glass. She's present, she's caring, she's available, yet somehow she remains unseen. Not literally invisible, but vibrationally transparent, as if her essence doesn't quite register in the consciousness of others. This isn't about being physically overlooked in a crowded room. This is about the deeper wound, the one that whispers in the quiet moments when she realizes she's been giving her energy, her attention, her love, and receiving only fragments in return. She watches others command attention effortlessly, while she feels like she's constantly proving her worth, constantly earning her place in conversations, in hearts, in minds. The pain is exquisite and familiar. It tastes like swallowed words and feels like a constant, gentle pressure behind the ribs. She knows she has value. Intellectually, she understands this. But there's a disconnect between knowing her worth and feeling genuinely seen for who she is. She's learned to be the one who listens, who supports, who adapts, who makes space for others to shine. And in that learned behavior, she's created what I call vibrational invisibility. Vibrational invisibility isn't about lacking value or presence. It's about unconsciously broadcasting a frequency that says, I'm here, but I don't need to be the focus. It's the energy of someone who's learned to dim her own light to make others comfortable, to avoid conflict, to maintain connection at any cost. She's not invisible because she's insignificant. She's invisible because she's learned to vibrate self-erasure as a survival mechanism. Bob Proctor taught us something profound. You attract what you're aligned with, not what you hope for. This woman hopes to be seen, cherished, and valued, but she's aligned with patterns of self-diminishment. Her paradigms, those deeply embedded subconscious programs, whisper ancient fears. Being fully seen is dangerous. Being too much will push people away. Your value lies in what you do for others, not in who you are.
Energy to make herself smaller so others can be bigger. And this learned behavior becomes so automatic, so embedded, that she doesn't even realize she's doing it. Imagine a flower that never fully opens because it learned early that blooming attracts attention, and attention can be dangerous. It remains partially closed, offering hints of its beauty, but never revealing its full magnificence. This flower isn't broken. It's protecting itself with strategies that once served it, but now limit its ability to be truly seen and appreciated. The woman caught in this pattern often attracts people who are comfortable with her self-diminishment. She draws in those who appreciate her availability, her adaptability, her willingness to be the supporting character in their stories. But she rarely attracts those who see her as the leading lady of her own life because she's not vibrating that frequency herself. This creates a painful cycle. She gives more, hoping to be valued more. She becomes more available, hoping to be chosen more. She adapts more, hoping to be loved more. But the more she diminishes herself, the more she attracts people who are comfortable with her being less than she is. The universe responds to her vibrational broadcast, not her conscious desires. The truth that's often hidden from her awareness is that she's not invisible because she lacks worth. She's invisible because she's learned to hide her worth behind layers of people-pleasing, self-sacrifice, and emotional camouflage. She's become so skilled at blending into what others need that she's forgotten how to stand in her own distinct presence. Breaking this pattern requires a fundamental shift in understanding. She must recognize that being seen isn't about doing more or being more for others. It's about being more authentically herself. It's about learning to vibrate her own frequency instead of constantly adjusting to match everyone else's. The journey from invisible to unmistakably present begins with a single recognition. The very strategies she's using to maintain connection are the same strategies that keep her from being truly seen. Her kindness, her adaptability, her selflessness, these aren't flaws, but when they're used as armor against rejection, they become barriers to genuine intimacy and recognition. This isn't about becoming selfish or demanding attention. It's about learning to exist fully in her own space, to speak her truth without apologizing, to take up the room that she deserves in the world, without feeling the need to constantly shrink to make others feel more comfortable.
She naturally occupies without shrinking to accommodate others' comfort. It's about understanding that her visibility isn't a favor she grants to the world. It's a gift she gives to herself and everyone who has the privilege of witnessing her authentic presence. The woman who learns to be seen doesn't change who she is. She stops hiding who she is. She doesn't become more demanding. She becomes more present. She doesn't love others less. She loves herself enough to be real with them. What moment in your past taught you to dim your light just to feel safe? Why do you keep attracting men who overlook you? There's a pattern that plays out in the shadows of a woman's relationships, so subtle she might not even notice it's happening. She meets someone, feels that flutter of possibility, and instinctively begins the dance of accommodation. She becomes attuned to his preferences, his moods, his needs. She learns his language, adapts to his rhythm, makes space for his dreams. And somewhere in this beautiful gesture of love, she begins to disappear. He doesn't ask her to disappear. He might not even notice it's happening. But slowly, gradually, she transforms from a woman with her own distinct presence into a reflection of what she thinks he wants. She becomes convenient, emotionally, physically, practically. She becomes the woman who fits seamlessly into his life, without requiring him to stretch, grow, or truly see her. This is the invisible cycle that keeps her trapped in relationships where she's present but not truly witnessed. She's learned to vibrate emotional convenience instead of authentic presence. She's broadcasting a frequency that says, "I won't be too much trouble. I won't require too much of your attention. I'll be here when you need me, invisible when you don't." Bob Proctor revealed a fundamental truth. Your paradigm is like a program running your life, and it controls your results unless you change it. Her paradigm, those deeply embedded subconscious beliefs, runs a program that equates love with self-erasure. The program whispers, to be loved, you must be easy to love. To be chosen, you must be the obvious choice. To be kept, you must never be too much. This paradigm was likely installed long before she ever met him. Perhaps it began with a father who was emotionally unavailable, teaching her that male attention was scarce and must be earned through perfect behavior. Maybe it started with early relationships where her authentic emotions were met with withdrawal, teaching her that her real self was too intense, too needy, too much. Now she finds herself in a heartbreaking dilemma. She desperately wants to be loved for who she is, but she's terrified of showing who she is. She wants to be seen, but she's learned that being truly seen feels dangerous. So she creates a version of herself that's palatable, manageable, non-threatening. She becomes the woman who never causes problems, never makes demands, never requires him to step outside his comfort zone. The cycle manifests in 3 subtle but devastating ways. First, she learns to agree when she actually disagrees. swallowing her own opinions to maintain harmony. She nods when he speaks, even when his words don't resonate with her truth. She laughs at jokes that don't amuse her, supports decisions that don't align with her values, and gradually loses touch with her own authentic responses to life. Second, she diminishes her own experiences to make room for his. When he shares his day, she listens with full attention. When she shares hers, she notices his eyes glazing over, his attention drifting, and she learns to make her stories shorter, less detailed, less important. She begins to edit herself in real time, offering only the parts of her experience that seem to engage him. Third, she becomes a masterpiece of effort, constantly working to be the best option, rather than simply being herself. She anticipates his needs, manages his moods, creates an environment where he feels comfortable and supported. She becomes indispensable through service, rather than irreplaceable through presence. The tragic irony is that the more she tries to be chosen, the less choosable she becomes. Not because she lacks value, but because she's hidden her value behind layers of accommodation. She's become so skilled at being what others need that she's forgotten how to be who she is. He doesn't fall in love with her. He falls in love with the convenience of her. He doesn't miss her when she's gone. He misses the services she provides. He doesn't see her. He sees the reflection of himself that she's learned to mirror back to him. This isn't necessarily conscious on his part. He might genuinely believe he cares for her, but he's responding to the frequency she's broadcasting, and that frequency says, "I exist to enhance your life, not to live my own." He's not choosing her. He's choosing the version of himself that feels comfortable
and supported in her presence. The woman caught in this cycle often finds herself in relationships where she's appreciated, but not adored, valued, but not treasured, needed, but not desired. She's the safe choice, the practical choice, the choice that makes sense. But she's rarely the choice that makes someone's heart race with the pure joy of her existence. Breaking this cycle requires a fundamental shift in understanding what makes a woman truly attractive. It's not her willingness to disappear. It's her courage to appear. It's not her ability to be everything to everyone. It's her commitment to being authentically herself with everyone. The woman who becomes impossible to overlook doesn't do more. She becomes more present with who she already is. She doesn't love others less. She loves herself enough to show up authentically in her relationships. She doesn't become selfish. She becomes self-full, radiating the energy of someone who knows her own worth and isn't afraid to let it be seen. This transformation isn't about changing her loving nature or her desire to care for others. It's about learning to care for herself with the same devotion she shows everyone else. It's about understanding that the most loving thing she can do is be real, because authenticity invites others into deeper connection than performance ever could. What part of yourself do you keep hiding, hoping it will make you more lovable? When you see yourself fully, others can't help but do the same. There comes a moment in a woman's journey when she stops asking to be seen and starts allowing herself to be witnessed. It's a subtle but profound shift from seeking external validation to radiating internal recognition. This isn't about demanding attention or performing for approval. This is about the quiet revolution that happens when a woman decides to stop hiding behind the comfort of invisibility. Let's begin with your breath. Close your eyes if you feel called to, and take a moment to arrive fully in your body. Feel the weight of your presence in this space. Notice how your breath moves through you, how your heart beats steadily in your chest,
how your body exists without your permission or effort. You are here. You are real. You are already worthy of being witnessed. Now imagine yourself in a space where you feel completely safe to be seen. Perhaps it's in nature, surrounded by trees that have witnessed countless seasons without judgment. Perhaps it's in
A space that feels held by something greater than yourself. In this space, allow yourself to expand. Feel your energy filling the area around you, not aggressively, but like water finding its natural level. In this visualization, notice what happens when you stop trying to be acceptable and start being authentic. Feel the relief in your nervous system when you're not monitoring your impact on others. Notice how your voice sounds when you're not editing your words. Observe how your body moves when you're not concerned with taking up too much space. This is your natural state, not the performed version of yourself, but the essential you that exists beneath all the strategies and accommodations. This is the woman who has always been worthy of being seen, who has always been enough, who has always been deserving of love and attention and care. From this place of authentic presence, speak these words to yourself, feeling their truth resonate in your body. I am visible. I am worthy of being witnessed. I don't shrink anymore. Let these words move through you like a gentle earthquake, shifting the foundation of old beliefs that told you to be smaller, quieter, less. I am visible, not because you're demanding to be seen, but because you're no longer hiding. I am worthy of being witnessed, not because you've earned it through perfect behavior, but because witnessing and being witnessed is the natural exchange of conscious beings. I don't shrink anymore, not because you've become aggressive or demanding, but because you've remembered that your natural size is perfect as it is. The woman who becomes impossible to ignore doesn't learn new techniques for getting attention. She unlearns the patterns that taught her to deflect it. She doesn't become more dramatic or louder or more demanding. She becomes more present, more authentic, more willing to exist fully in her own skin. Bob Proctor taught us that the vibration you hold is your invitation to the universe. When you vibrate self-recognition, you invite others to recognize you. When you vibrate worthiness, you attract people who see your worth. When you vibrate presence, you draw in those who appreciate your authentic being rather than your performed doing. This shift changes everything about how you move through the world. You stop asking for permission to have opinions and start sharing them naturally. You stop apologizing for your needs and start honoring them as valid. You stop trying to be the perfect woman and start being the real woman, the one who has bad days and good days, who sometimes knows exactly what she wants and sometimes feels completely lost, who loves deeply and also needs to be loved in return. The woman who has learned to be seen doesn't need to prove her value anymore. She doesn't need to be the most helpful, the most agreeable, the most convenient. She can be helpful when it feels authentic, agreeable when she actually agrees, convenient when it works for her too. She can also be challenging when the situation calls for it, disagreeable when her truth differs from others, and inconvenient when her needs don't align with others' expectations. This doesn't make her selfish, it makes her real. And reality, even when it's imperfect, is infinitely more attractive than performance, even when it's flawless. Think of yourself as the sun. The sun doesn't try to prove it's bright, it simply shines. It doesn't apologize for its warmth or dim its light to make others comfortable. It doesn't beg to be noticed or work to earn its place in the sky. It exists fully, radiates naturally, and allows others to bask in its presence or seek shade as they choose. You are like the sun, not because you're perfect, but because you're essential. Your light, your warmth, your presence is not something you need to earn or prove. It's something you need to stop hiding behind the clouds of fear, self-doubt, and learned invisibility. When you stop hiding and start shining, something magical happens. The people who were comfortable with your dimmed light might feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. They were never your people anyway. The people who can handle your full brightness, who are nourished by your authentic presence, who see you and celebrate you. These people will be drawn to you like flowers turning toward the sun. You don't need to chase recognition anymore. You don't need to perform for love. You don't need to earn your place in relationships or spaces or conversations. You simply need to show up as yourself, fully, authentically, unapologetically yourself. The woman who becomes impossible to ignore isn't trying to be impossible to ignore. She simply stopped making herself possible to overlook. She stopped hiding her light, stopped apologizing for her presence, stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain her full magnificence. This is your invitation, not to become someone new, but to stop hiding who you've always been. Not to demand attention, but to stop deflecting it. Not to become perfect, but to become present. What would shift in your life if you stopped hiding and fully showed up in your own light?